purposes of these two presentations. And at this time, our first will be for the Highway 101 Eureka Arcata Corridor Project with Mr. Jeff Pimentel.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you guys hear me okay? I think I'm having some connectivity issues.
You're breaking up still.
But can you guys... It's still
It's pretty
breaking up?
sketchy. Yep.
Okay. Well, I'm going to let Beth go ahead and do the update. We met earlier today. So Beth, did you want to give the update?
I'd be happy to. Thank you, Jeff. All right. So I really do hate to steal Jeff's thunder because it's such good news. We had bid openings on the Indianola project. This, if you'll remember, was a repackage, re-advertise, hoping to bring the cost down some. That whole endeavor was actually quite successful. The bids came in under the engineer's estimate. So just quick note on bottom line, what that means for HCOG is that we won't need to put any more of our local STIP shares or our state transportation improvement dollars. We won't need to put any more into this project at this time. So good news, the low bidder was Granite Construction, and additionally, the engineer's estimate had assumed that we would need to use the bulk of the contingency in addition to what Caltrans calls the G12 fund. And so because the bids came in lower than the engineer's estimate, we are going into the project with $3.3 million remaining in G12 funds and also still the 5% contingency intact, which is a really nice cushion. We've got a 3-year construction window on this project, complicated project, so it's really nice to start it with a contingency. From here, it looks like the target award date would be November 18th. We're looking at a target for contract approval on December 2nd, and early 2023, spring of 2023, construction would start. We did discover when we took this item to the TAC, it looks like Bay Trail construction will be happening around that same time, the final leg of it. So everyone will be coordinated on that, but it will be a lot of movement out there in the same general area. Jeff and I have been talking diligently about a public outreach campaign to launch that in advance of any construction starting. This project has been in the works for over 20 years, but some people may feel like the first they've heard of it is when they see things moving on the ground. So we want to make sure that we are ahead of that. We want to make sure we have a firm construction schedule before we launch that, so we don't keep kind of reiterating different dates and different targets. So once we confirm that up and the contractors in place, we will launch in earnest on the outreach campaign. The first activities will be really vegetation removal and grading for that column support and embankment. So that's what everyone will kind of see on the ground to get started. But just overall, exceptionally good news. I was very pleasantly surprised and shocked in this time that we actually came under the engineer's estimate. So just really good news. Thanks so much to Jeff and everyone at Caltrans for all their work on that, and well worth the repackage and re-advertise on this one. So I will leave it at that. I think Jeff is having trouble staying on the line, so I think that's as much as we get to know about that for today.
Thank you for that. That's very good news. A lot of people will be pleased, especially with the Bay Trail proceeding and the public information campaign starting early. So, and thank you for that. At this time, our second...
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Please? Thanks. So remind me again how much the contract was for?
The bid came in at $46.6 million, or approximately, and then there's additional supplemental work and state furnished items. So the engineer's estimate, including what the contractor was bidding on, and the supplemental work and state furnished items, was $54.5 million, approximately.
Okay, and then the second question is, you were talking about outreach. How are you planning to do that? And will there be some media coverage and through television or other ways? Yeah. I think we'll be doing, kind of all hands on, or, all points. I think we'll be trying to do some
newspaper articles. Just kind of one thing we've been working on at HCOG is, just kind of documenting the whole history of this very long and important project. So we'd like to get that story out of just kind of all the twists and turns and what it took to get here. So that's a bit of a history exercise, but I think it'd be really nice to tell the full story. So that's something we're working on internally. At Caltrans, they have a full-time, public information officer and a whole team, so they can make videos. They have a lot more capability for that kind of, and they have a larger reach for social media than we do. So we will be, newspaper, all the traditional and more of the social media, and then being able to do videos, and certainly will be available for interviews or any formats, and always happy if anybody, wants us to come present at their jurisdiction or, wherever the information seems useful, we'll be happy to get there.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, our second presentation is the Core Hub North Coast Offshore Wind Community Benefit Network, and with Amy Jester, the Humboldt Area and Wild Rivers Community Foundation Director, one of the presenters.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. And now I'm seeing myself. Give me just a second. Well, thanks so much for the opportunity to present to all of you today. I'm Amy Jester. I'm the Director of Policy, Advocacy, and Civic Leadership with the Humboldt Area Foundation and the Wild Rivers Community Foundation. I am going to share my screen here. Give me just a moment. Can you all see that okay? Okay, excellent. So one of the things that we are doing at Humboldt Area Foundation and the Wild Rivers Community Foundation is incubating or launching a program called the Redwood Region Climate and Community Resilience Hub, the Core Hub, as I will be referring to it going forward in this presentation. The slide that is up on the screen now, there's a lot of words up there, but one of the things that you'll see in bold there is the really the purpose and sort of vision for the Core Hub is that by 2030 we're the first proven carbon sequestering rural and tribal area in the United States, and that very ambitious goal, and there's a lot of stuff that takes place underneath that, and that includes community engagement, a lot around technical assistance, bringing together different organizations, agencies, tribal governments that are working in many ways and have been working in many ways on climate resilience issues in our region to figure out ways that we can further partner, strengthen collaborations, and really ensure that we're doing everything in our collective regional power to make this climate transition and energy transition, and that we do that through ensuring that big projects are able to go forward to support climate resilience, and that we are, especially in this moment, taking advantage of opportunities of funding that's coming down from the state and the federal government over like this year and the next couple of years. So that's absolutely critical to the mission of the Core Hub. We are also really centered in this work around racial equity in particular. So as we talk about climate and community resilience, that work holds at its core racial equity and those principles. So what I'm going to be talking a little bit about here today is offshore wind. That's one of the first efforts that the Climate and Community Resilience Hub, which I should note was launched about this time last year, is engaging in. There are many organizations, agencies, and governments that have been engaged in offshore wind and communities for quite some time, and some of those entities have been instigators of the Core Hub and worked together to help establish the Core Hub. So what we're really building from the work that's been done here to identify ways in which offshore wind can happen here from the perspective of the core hub. I think it's a little bit different than some of those that have been engaged previously, which is really around bringing different community interests together to identify ways in which we can influence, especially, state and federal process to ensure that our region's needs and interests and the leadership and vision of this region is incorporated into regulatory processes that the state and federal government are developing that will guide the creation of this new industry in the state of California and the nation. So that's a big part of the work that we've been doing. As the slide up here notes, and I imagine you all are likely familiar with some of this information, but it might not be, familiar to everybody. The Bureau of Ocean Energy Management is overseeing offshore wind development for the federal government. And some time ago, over a year ago, confirmed what they're referring to as the Humboldt Wind Energy Area and the Morro Bay Wind Energy Area as 2 sites for offshore wind development. And the state of California and the federal government have been working in partnership to advance the development of wind farms in both of those footprints in the ocean. In this map, and I have another one a little bit later on, you'll what we're looking at in these little sections here. That is about 20 plus miles off the coast of Humboldt County. And there will be an auction. We just learned on Tuesday that there will be an auction for wind energy developer to have the opportunity to develop a small wind farm in that footprint. And so that auction is going to be taking place on December 6th. And we're anticipating that a lease for the opportunity to develop a wind farm, in that little footprint, 20 miles off the coast, will be awarded sometime after the end of March of 2023. So here's just a little bit more information about offshore winds that I think is important. These are floating wind turbines. Floating wind energy is a newer technology for wind energy globally. So, California and really, the United States and through this investment in California, it's really going to be a newer opportunity for, furthering development of this particular industry and this technological solution for some of our, nation and our states' energy resilience needs. As you can see here, well, you can't really tell the scale here. These wind turbines are quite large, larger than the Eiffel Tower, interestingly enough. And they are linked together, as you can see, through underwater, connector systems, and also are anchored to the seafloor. And then, wind energy, electricity is transported in a underwater cable, either onto shore or in a subsea cable, through the ocean for some time, and then eventually clearly linked onto shore, on where energy is transferred to an onshore substation, and then goes out to the state of California. So here's just a little bit more of the picture and a little bit more on what it is that we're anticipating in terms of development. They're currently development for this little footprint off the coast of Humboldt is, and the auction that's taking place in December is going to determine how many, the potential for how many turbines can be established in that area by the year 2030. And then there will be another auction likely at a later point in time to guide development that'll happen likely in that footprint in the year 2045. So the auction that I'd mentioned a couple times now that's going to be taking place in December is for a small and partial build out of that little map that you see before you. And it's anticipated that that would likely be between 10 and 15 turbines for the year 2030. So when we're thinking about offshore wind development, there's a lot to be considered. As I'm sure you all know, there's a ton that's happening with port development. There's also a lot, as I mentioned before, related to electrical transmission upgrades. If we look at what's happening with PG&E and Southern Humboldt and the other challenges with our electrical grid and transmission systems, both locally and throughout the state, there's a lot of work that needs to be done in order to transfer electricity from these offshore wind turbines onto shore. That's particularly the case in Humboldt County. And one of the things that we have heard a lot from communities that we've been engaging with, and a community benefit network that I'll talk about in just a moment, is really the need for offshore wind as it's developed off the coast here to benefit our communities' energy resilience. So we've really heard that it's so critical and important that that we really use this as an opportunity to strengthen our local energy infrastructure and electrification. So that's been one of the things that we're really looking at and advocating for wherever we can. Of course, there's also a lot of work that's going to be happening in terms of supply chain development, workforce development. There's a lot of infrastructure stuff, that I know all of you are interested in and care about, that comes with development of a new industry like this. So really thinking about how to coordinate around development of this new industry. We have a pretty unique opportunity in the region to do that. It's not every day that a new industry potentially lands in your community with some ability to do some vision and planning around what it could look like for that development to take place at such a significant level over the next several decades to come. I should note that these are 33 plus year leases that are going to be awarded through this auction process. So there's a lot of work for us to do as a local community, for all of you in your government leadership roles, for tribal nations, for local organizations, communities, agencies, to coordinate around what we want to see have happen here around offshore wind, and to figure out how to make it work in a way that is sustainable and will help our communities thrive, into the future. And I'll move it along. So in terms of, I've shared out some of these things in terms of how the Core Hub is involved in offshore wind. A lot of that has been around understanding interests, doing a lot of advocacy, doing outreach like this to local government agencies. We are also, we were able to secure some funding from a couple different resources to support community organizations, tribal nations, and frontline communities, or those communities that are immediately impacted by development related to offshore wind, or who experience a significant amount of energy insecurity and unreliability, or climate catastrophe. We're able to receive some grant funding to support those governments and communities in engaging in offshore wind, so that they can be part of influencing and thinking about and planning for how that industry develops here. And then we also have established a community benefit network, and that is a group of governments, tribes, local communities, environmental organizations, other nonprofits, and more, that have really come together around what their common interests are in how offshore wind develops here. Really looking at the unique opportunity that that we have here. It's once in a multi-generation opportunity for a variety of reasons in terms of development, energy infrastructure, all that good stuff. And the group has also really come together to communicate, I think, with both developers as well as the state and federal government, that it's absolutely critical that benefits and investments need to come here as part of the industry coming here. So, the nation is kind of depending on our community to help to advance this transition to an energy resilient future. And so one of the key things that we've been doing through this community benefit network is communicating back out to the federal government how important it is that that come with a certain level of investment. And the other, I think, core tenet of the community benefit network is that this is a really critical opportunity to shift old patterns of really devastating, resource extractive industrial practices that have left our communities underinvested in for so long. And so really looking at how we can shift that in this time. And of course, there's a racial implication to that as well when we're thinking about the harm that's been caused in this region, and in particular to tribal nations and indigenous communities here for centuries. And it's important that if people are going to be into that idea of offshore wind and be supportive of that people are involved in shaping how it happens. Just have another couple slides and then I will conclude. I actually think I've done a lot of this already. So one of the things that I just wanted to let you know about are a couple of milestones that are coming up in terms of process. This is the beginning of a long period of development. So I think it's really important that our communities, our region, continue to grow, how we're thinking about ways that we can work with the state and federal agencies that are leading these processes to ensure that this place continues to have agency over how industry is developed. There's a lot of work that the state of California is doing to develop a strategic plan for offshore wind. That strategic planning process is going to go before it's happening now. It basically goes through June 2023, and the California Energy Commission is going to be voting on a strategic plan in June of 2023. There are many steps that the Energy Commission is taking between now and then that we as a region have an opportunity to comment on, to better understand, and to make sure that as they're doing their planning process, that we're sharing out about what is important to this place. The Core Hub Community Benefits Network that I've referenced before has a particular platform that I've also referenced that we're advocating for in terms of what's important based on the work that we've done. And I think there are also times where it could be really helpful to hear from many of your agencies and organizations about what's important specifically to you. There's also the U.S. Coast Guard Port Access Route Study that's really looking at the impacts of traffic in the ocean between here and that wind energy area that's going to be developed. And the Coast Guard is actually accepting comments on their draft study through, I believe, Monday. And then another key piece is that December 6th auction. And there aren't a lot of advocacy pieces that can necessarily happen specifically related to the auction at this point, but there's a lot of work to be done between now and then for different communities to talk with developers, for us to think about what we want here and how we might encourage certain developers that are really interested in the long-term health and thriving of this place, and also have an interest in really being a good partner to this community. So with that, I will go ahead and conclude my presentation. Let me know if you have any questions. And I'm also happy to talk with you after today's meeting or present to your agency or governmental body if you're interested in that as well.
Any questions or comments?
Thank you for that, Amy. I appreciate that presentation. I was just wondering if you had any feedback for how the negotiation for benefits is going, or if you could touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, that's a really great question. So just this Tuesday, the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management released its plan for how the auction and leasing process is going to work. And in that, they have incentivized a lease area use community benefit agreement that I would say primarily focuses on fisheries, commercial fisheries, tribal fisheries, to be able to enter into an agreement with developers for some kind of an investment or benefit. And then there's also a general community benefit agreement that developers can basically get a credit for, so they don't have to put as much money up front in the auction. And that is that's pretty open. So what we're looking at right now with the community benefit network is really better understanding which of the 43 developers that may be bidding on this process could be interested in the goals and principles and types of partnerships that we've outlined in our recommendations to BOEM. So that's where we're at in the process, is better understanding like who wants to be a partner in that way, that really supports this place and its long-term investment.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, through the chair. One of the reasons I asked Amy to come and present is that we have been participating in the Community Benefit Network's meetings, and they are, a really beautifully collaborative process, and it's been a real privilege to get to participate in that. I would like to, in the near future, bring this back to HCOG as an action item to see if we would like to essentially join or support the Community Benefits Network. And one of the things that happens, as Amy was discussing the timelines, they kind of come fast and furious, and we don't always get a whole lot of notice. It doesn't always compute well with our board meetings in terms of when a letter needs to be issued. So I've been very hesitant to put an HCOG seal on anything. I do believe what they're talking about in the Community Benefits Network, it overlaps very, very closely with our regional transportation plan priorities, especially those, related to, our whole transportation system, but also our equity goals and our climate goals. So I think that there is, a nexus between what they talk about and what we do here at HCOG. So, it's not for action tonight, but in the future, I would like to bring it back to consider that, to, again, allow HCOG to be a signatory on that when they have, when they're advancing, letters or whatever other advocacy they're doing.
I think that would be a great idea. And do we have any more comments? I see we have a hand up there for Colin Fisk with Coalition for Responsible Transport. Oh, I didn't see his. Okay, well, do we want to? Yeah. So, Supervisor Wilson, you have a comment,
Yes.
question?
Well, first, I want to apologize for being late today. I was in another meeting and that just went over, and I just could not peel away. But I do want to say that I do think it is important to broaden the coalition with relationship to the CBA and our communities and our various organizations. I was on the phone today with Secretary Crowfoot about the CBA effort, not just with relationship to our CBA with our community benefits agreements, but those on the coast, and even with relationship to lithium extraction from Salton Sea and the communities and how they're doing that around there. And the state's starting to pay attention, and the broader and stronger our communities are with relationship to these arrangements, especially when we're talking about federal leasing, then the stronger we are, the more the state will have the ability to support us in those efforts. And so I just want put my 2 cents in that I do support this organization and everyone organization I'm a part of to kind of coalesce around this. Again, it's whatever comes out of this is, and from my perspective, probably not going to be perfect for everybody, but it's going to always be better if we're working together for everybody in terms of the net aggregate for our community. So that's where I'm at. Thanks.
Thank you. And Colin's still on the line. And we'll receive his comments, questions.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. First, I just wanted to say that I'm really glad that Core Hub and HCOG are coordinating. I think, with the goal of reaching that net carbon negative target for the county, we're obviously going to have to address transportation, which is the biggest source of climate harming emissions that the county produces. And so I think that's it's very important for the Regional Transportation Planning Agency to be coordinating there. I also think regarding offshore wind, sort of echoing some of Supervisor Wilson's points, I think that there's an opportunity, or I hope that there's an opportunity in the community benefits process to look at funding related to transit and or active transportation improvements, which can help address the climate issues, but also local quality of life and some of the impacts that are likely to arise from industrialization of the port on the streets. And so I hope that that's on the table. And also one other thing, which may be a little bit less obvious, but when we have hopefully an abundance of local renewable electricity, I think that opens the door to local green hydrogen production, which could help us complete the true decarbonization both of transit fleets and heavy duty freight vehicles. And so I hope that that's another thing that we are considering. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe that's okay. Well, thank you for the presentations, and I hope we'll have her back again. And at this time, we will, having achieved a quorum, we will convene this regular meeting of the October 20th, 2022 Humboldt County Association of Governments Board meeting. And our first order of business, having called to order, is a roll call.
Supervisor Wilson,
Present.
Mayor Jones,
Here.
Mayor Seaman, Councilmember Avis,
Present.
Mayor Atkins Salazar,
Here.
Councilmember Mike Johnson,
Here.
Councilmember Gordon Johnson, Councilmember Jack West, PAC member Arroyo,
Here.
PAC member Allstrand.
Here.
Thank you.
And thank you. And at this time, we will adjourn as the board and reconvene as the PAC. At this time, do we have any public comment on non-agenda items? Okay. Then we will move to the consent calendar. We have 5 items. AB 361 findings, approval of the meeting record, HCOG revised personnel policies and procedures, HCOG legal counsel, and fiscal year 22-23 HTA local transportation development fund for Eureka Transit. And at this time, do we have any comment on the consent calendar?
I'll move consent.
I have a brief public comment, if that's all right with the board.
Yes.
My name is Connor Harkins. I would like to comment on item 5D on the consent calendar, the legal counsel agreement. I'm I'm an attorney with the law firm that proposes to represent the COG, Colin Highsmith and Watley. As this is an on-call engagement, I wanted to take this opportunity to introduce myself to the board. In the case that the board approves the agreement, I won't be appearing regularly, but I will be working with your executive director on legal issues that come up. My firm is a general counsel law firm. We represent cities, counties, and public agencies around the state. In my practice, I do a mix of litigation and advisory work, public finance, CEQA, land use issues, Brown Act issues, public contracting, public records issues. And I'm very much looking forward to helping out the COG with those issues. On a personal note, I'm a former Humboldt County native, grew up in Humboldt County, and I am excited to represent an agency in an area I know a little bit about. So with that, I will conclude and thank the board for considering our legal services proposal.
Thank you. So at this time, we'll entertain a motion for the consent calendar.
I'll move again.
And I will second, Mayor Jones.
We have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call?
Supervisor Wilson,
Yes.
Adeline Jones. I'm sorry,
Yes.
Mayor Jones. Councilmember Avis,
Aye.
Mayor Atkins Salazar,
Yes.
Councilmember Mike Johnson,
Yes.
PAC member Arroyo,
Yes.
PAC member Allstrand.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. There being no items removed, no action items or informational items, by motion, we will reconvene as the HCOG board and approve the PAC recommendations.
I so move, Mayor Jones.
Second, Avis.
Second, a motion and a second. Can we get another roll call?
Supervisor Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Councilmember Avis,
Aye.
Mayor Atkins Salazar,
Yes.
Councilmember Mike Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And thank you. And this time we enter the item 10, HCOG staff and PAC member reports, starting with the executive director's report.
Thank you. I have a few updates for this evening. The first is, many of you are aware of this already, the annual on-met transit needs process is well underway. This is being led by Associate Regional Planner Stevie Luther, and he has gone to several of our jurisdictions, so you may have seen him recently at your city council meetings. He still has, I believe, the county to go to and a couple more cities, so those should be wrapped up by the end of the month. Anyone wishing to make comments on the on-met transit needs process can find the survey at our website, hcog.net. And we have also initiated the Transit Development Plan update. So our consultant is currently conducting stakeholder interviews, and we will be supplementing the consultant scope with HCOG staff resources to enhance the public engagement opportunities. This was something we could do in-house, and we wanted to make sure it was robust public engagement. So we are going to be coordinating with a consultant on that. So we'll keep the board informed of upcoming public meetings, survey opportunities, and any other opportunities for participation. The pavement management plans that we've been working on for every city in the county. We've been working on these for, probably close to, if not over a year already. The drafts of these reports have been issued, and we've had really good involvement from our TAC this round. And in many cases, they've already provided comments on the draft reports, and some have received final reports. So these pavement management plans. This is where they went out and surveyed every mile of pavement on public roads throughout the entire county and every city. This is a very important tool for your public works directors to be able to budget for road improvements. It gives them that pavement condition index. So it's been a big effort, and we're glad that we made it to this milestone of getting the reports issued. There's training to go, and there's some tribal inspections that are still happening. So it's not quite wrapped up. It'll wrap up early next year, but this was a big milestone. The other news is that I will be presenting to the Redwood Region Economic Development Council next Monday at their board meeting. They asked me to present, so I'll just be discussing HCOG's efforts through our REAP program and some of our goals and policies that are in our regional transportation plan. So I appreciate that invite. And then finally, generally popular safe program updates. We'll say for the Highway Patrol, they have been continuing their deployments. And so within the last month, they did 16 deployments. And 9 of those were conducted on Route 36 and 7 were conducted on 96. During the month, they provided aid to 59 motorists. They did give 4 verbal warnings, issued 11 citations, and made 1 DUI arrest. And they traveled over 2,500 miles in the last month on our behalf. So other news in the SAFE program, the ADA improvements, we received our encroachment permit from Caltrans for the ADA improvements to the call boxes. So that will, the work on that will be initiated towards the end of the month. And following that work, we'll be working on installing the new call boxes that were discussed in our strategic plan. And so that will be after the ADA improvements. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions for? Okay. Well, thank you very much. And at this time, we'll move to Caltrans Reports.
Hi, thank you. I have a couple of updates. One on last chance grade. Oh, let me adjust this. Thank you. Clean California, and then a status projects that are going in the vicinity of Blue Lake and Arcata. So last chance grade, the project remains on schedule and on budget. There was a mitigation workshop that was held on October 12th. There's a field review in the northern entrance to the proposed 1-mile tunnel. And that will help avoid the landslide activity on that section of 101 just south of Crescent City. So the meeting highlighted measures that we've taken to avoid and minimize the impacts to that sensitive environment. And the participants shared their views on the mitigation process and what can be done. So the project manager, Jamie Mattioli, acknowledged that the long-term commitment from HCOG on the project, and also noted that Councilmember Gordon Johnson, who I believe isn't here tonight, has just been participating in the process for a long time, going back to 2015, if not earlier. So we just wanted to thank HCOG and Councilmember Johnson for that. Clean California, the Humboldt County dump days that are scheduled. Willow Creek has a dump day planned for November 5th, and then Rio del Scotia dump day planned for February 2023, and that's still subject to change, and we'll keep you updated as the dates get finalized. There's a Clean California Community Day, Spring into Action, that'll likely be in March. Partnership opportunity for community cleanups statewide. The program will provide cleanup kits and other things. And we're looking for community groups that are interested in partnering. Updates on the beautification projects. The Berry Summit Vista Point public meeting was last week. The construction is expected in spring. The work will include a pit toilet, EV charging, picnic tables, and more. We're also working with the city of Eureka to paint the utility cabinet boxes on 101. There's work for the Hoopa Downtown Beautification Project currently advertised, bid opening November 1st, and construction expected for this winter and next spring. And then Orleans Downtown Community Enhancement Public Meeting, that will be on October 26th at 6 p.m. And there's a link to the virtual meeting that's on our website. And construction for that is expected next spring and summer. And then the Clean California Local Grant Program, there'll be a cycle 2. It's starting up. The first webinar will be held on November 3rd. So we'll continue to share updates with stakeholders as that program rolls out. There's also a mailing list that you can join if you're interested. And then projects in the vicinity of 101 and State Route 299. There's the North Bank Road, State Route 200, 299. The schedule is to raise the bridge tomorrow night. The work on the bridge will continue for another month or so after the bridge is raised. And then they'll shift focus to paving, guardrail, and striping. Just east of that project is another project to repair and replace culverts. That contract was awarded last month. And then there's the Arcata 101 merge improvements that we've talked about in previous meetings. That right-of-way certification is underway and it should be ready to list in December, and construction still scheduled for summer 2023. And finally, the cable median barrier along 101 near Gentoli is wrapping up. There's also a Caltrans Milestone report that was included in the board package. So if there's any additional questions about anything included in that report, I'm happy to field those. Thank you.
Any questions for PAC member Allstrand? Nope. All right. Well, thank you very much. And now PAC member Arroyo.
I don't think I have any exciting updates this month, but I'll get back to you next month with more transit updates. I think the unmet transit needs process is the big item that I hope we get lots of input on.
Oh, thank you very much. And we've reached the end of our meeting. Never let it be said that our meetings are routine and boring. So thank you very much for participating, and we'll call this meeting adjourned.